Hello friends, in today's video I am going to discuss factors of economic growth, right? It's quite important topic from your examination point of UPSC civil services point of view. So we need to understand what are the factors of economic growth. Friends, our website is rameshwarias.com and there is an icon there, knowledge store. You should press that icon and you can find out multiple articles on various economic issues. So you can do that to get more and more knowledge about economic issues. In today's video, we are discussing factors of economic growth. As a student, you must know what are the factors which can boost your economic growth. So, what are the factors of economic growth? This is our topic, right? So, what is economic growth? First of right, it is sustained increase in output, right? Sustained increase in output, or you may say GDP of your country. Every country wants to get sustained growth in its production level of goods and services. And economic growth is very much important objective before every economy. Higher economic growth leads to higher economic welfare because people are able to get more and more of goods and services. So if we are able to get more and more goods and services of our choice, we feel welfare, we feel happiness. So economic growth is important for welfare of the people. Not only for this, even for government's revenue purpose, economic growth is quite important because higher economic growth also leads to a higher fiscal capacity of the government. In which way? Because tax collection will be higher, right? You may say that if you are to use one diagram sort of thing like this, so if your GDP is here, your tax revenue, then you can make relationship like this. So lower GDP, lower tax revenue, higher GDP, higher tax revenue. And GDP is what, like production of goods and services, and the taxes are imposed on. There are two type of taxes, direct and indirect. So indirect tax collection is dependent on your GDP, right? Because indirect taxes are imposed on goods and services. If there is more and more production of goods, there will be more collection from indirect taxes. This is one thing. Secondly, GDP also leads to income for the people, right? GDP, if you calculate GDP at factor cost, means if taxes are not included in your GDP valuation, only whatever you pay to the factors of production, if you include that only in your calculation of GDP, that is GDP at factor cost, that factor cost becomes income of the people. So if I pay to a worker some money, then it is cost from my point of view, but it is income from that person's point of view. So higher GDP also shows higher income of the people. And income tax, corporation tax, such type of tax collections will increase if there is good GDP. So, and goes the point what, like economic growth is not only important for people's welfare point of view, but it is also important from government point of view, government tax collection point of view. And Article 38 of Indian Constitution says that Indian state is welfare state. So government is to spend more and more money in order to ensure welfare of the people, and that money will come only when tax collection is good. Otherwise, if they are borrowing from the market, there will be higher debt GDP ratio. And if you go for the present times, like various countries are having very high debt GDP ratio, like Sri Lanka and Japan and various other countries, Bangladesh and so on. So that is not the idea, good idea, that we should borrow money and we should spend that money for all these purposes. It's better that you should get more and more tax collection. But if you increase tax rates, it is also again not the very good idea. So you should increase the tax base of your country, and GDP is a good tax base. So here now issue is about how to ensure higher economic growth. What are the factors responsible for economic growth? So friends, if this is our country and our boundary, and in this boundary we are producing GDP, so what factors can lead to higher economic growth or higher product? The very much important thing is what, like, you must have natural resources in your country. Most of the people do not recognize these natural resources. But without natural capital, you can also call it something like natural capital. So natural capital is required, right? Like you must have rivers, you must have forests, you must have, good amount of land and so on. So natural resources is one thing. But suppose if a country is having natural resources, but it is not having machines to exploit the natural resources, then there will be problems. So we need also like something like physical capital formation. Physical capital, in that you can include like machine, equipments, buildings and so on. So physical capital, natural resources. Now you are having both these items like natural resources, always physical capital, but you are not having manpower to use this physical capital, skilled manpower. So there is a need of manpower also, like skilled manpower is skilled manpower, which you may call as human capital. So I'm talking about here human capital, right? So if these three things are there, now if you want to better utilize the physical resources and natural resources, then you need infrastructure, right? Good infrastructure. So you need good infrastructure, right? Another requirement is infra. Like you must have roads, ports, telecommunication, and so on. So infrastructure will lead to good exploitation of these resources, resulting into higher and higher production. Now, friends, not only these items are required, but if you want to go for physical capital formation, you need savings. So saving in a country is also required. And there was a UPSC maths question once, that do you think that saving rate is critical factor to determine the economic growth of a country? So whatever you are producing currently, if you are consuming the whole production, then you will not be left with any savings. You can take the example that a farmer is producing and using all the production in consumption, and he is not saving seeds for the next crop, then how you will get the next crop? So saving is essential for uh, creation of capital type of items, or you may say capital formation. If farmer is saving something, then he can use that saving for purchasing tube well, pump set, tractor, harvester, thresher, and so on. Saving is essential. But simple saving is not enough. You must invest it. So another requirement is what? Investment, right? Investment is another thing. You need to make investment, right? And there is a ratio called as ICOR. ICOR should be lower. So in another video somewhere I will be teaching you about ICOR. Incremental capital output ratio. It shows the productivity of capital. In an efficient economy, ICOR must be lower. Means higher the level of ICOR, less productive will be the capital. And less is the value of ICOR, more will be the productivity. So ICOR should be lower for that. And you can also use, international trade for economic growth, like international trade. There are various countries which use the model of export-led growth, right? They, promoted exports. Economies were basically small economies, but they exploited export sector and they grew by very high rates. You can include countries like South Korea and so on. So these are broadly, they seems to be economic sort of thing, like saving is economic concept, investment is economic concept, ICOR is economic concept, and international trade is economic concept. All these things are economic sort of thing. But there are some non-economic factors also, which are not economic in nature. You may say like social organization, how your society is working, whether it is progressive society or what. Social organizations are critical for the development of a country. If people are conservative, traditional thinking, they are not having scientific temperament, then your economic growth will suffer. And another thing, important thing is what political organization. Political organizations do also impact economic growth. What is the political leadership in our country? If we see implementation of GST, if we see various reforms regarding how to attract FDI, ease of doing business and so on, they are all political, decisions. So friends, all these factors determine economic growth of your country, and this topic is quite important from your mains as well as prelims point of view. So I am again requesting you, you should go on to our website, that is rameshwarias.com, and press the knowledge store icon there to get many more articles on various issues. So thank you friends. Let us meet in the next video. Thank you very much.